Hey,
All
Brandon,
right,
can you hear
John,
me?
can you hear me? Yeah, man, I can hear you. How are you tonight?
Yes, sir. We're doing great, rocking and rolling, trying to wrap up the night.
All right, man, that sounds good. If you will, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business now. John, Dad was telling me that you guys are really doing some great work over there. Talk to us about what you guys are doing, if you will, please.
Yes, sir. So I got my MC license back in last April, and I acquired my first customer around the end of June, beginning of July. And from August up until today, we've done over 100K in revenue each month with this customer, and it's been going really well. I've developed me and the shipper. We've gotten really close over these past few months, built a strong relationship, and just I guess with when you're running this amount of loads each month, you're going to start to have issues. And at times that can
Yes,
be
sir.
challenging starting as a new broker and not knowing how to handle certain situations when they come across your desk.
Yes, sir. You started in April, got your motor carrier authority in April.
Uh-huh.
First start moving loads about June time frame. And from that time up until now, you've been moving about $100,000 in revenue with this company, this one shipper per month. Did I understand you correctly?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, couple questions I got for you, right? I noticed you said you wanted 100,000 with this one shipper. Have you pretty much put most of your focus on this shipper instead of trying to go out and get new customers right now because of the amount of freight, the volume of freight you're moving with this shipper?
I have, and I don't recommend doing that, but this shipper is giving me so much volume. I
Hmm.
work around the clock. I literally, there's always time, but I haven't made time to attack other customers like I should be doing right now. But my wife, on
Okay.
the other hand, we're in the process of getting her onboarded to where she can step away from her job and help me full time with this now. So I do have an email set up for my wife. She has started email campaigns and getting on a call cadence with other customers that we're prospecting. We just haven't landed any yet. But me personally, I'm not out attacking trying to acquire other customers right now at this moment, just because the volume is just way too high for me to take my eyes off of this particular customer.
I asked that question, man, because that's exactly what happened when we first got started. We had a customer that was giving us so much volume that we came together and decided, hey, we're not going to, pursue other customers right now. We are going to lock in and make sure that we do the best job as far as servicing this customer, because it was just so much coming in and we were new. So we didn't want to try and take on more responsibility without, making sure that we did right by this one customer. So that's why I asked that question. But I think that you're definitely right. You don't want to get in a position where you're just focused on one customer, because if something happens, then that customer is most of your revenue and it could cost you some issues. But at the same time, I do think that it's necessary to pay more attention to customers that you are doing more business with. And when you first start and you have this type of customer, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to focus a lot of attention, most of your attention on the customer. With that
Right.
said, what type of moves have you been focused on, John, right now? What type of freight are you moving? Is it full
So
truckload? Is it less than truckload? How does that go?
all of my freight, I'd say 95% of the freight with this particular customer is refrigerated full truckload. Most all of their loads have at least 3 or 4 drops minimum on all of their routes. They occasionally will have some last minute drive in that they'll ask me to move here and there, but for the most part, it is full truckload refrigerated freight.
Good, good. Okay, so you pretty much having some pretty easy load moves, pickups and drop offs, but you do have some that are 3 or 4 drops, multi-pick, multi drops on there, huh?
Most of my drops are 3 or 4 drops, one pick, 3 or 4 drops, but I occasionally have those one pick, one drops,
Okay.
and some dry vans sprinkled into it.
Okay. Okay. How are your margins so far? You doing pretty good on your margins?
Yes, between 20 and 30.
Yeah, so when I ran my numbers at the end of the month, right now I'm coming in between that 20-25% margin on on average for all of my loads that I move with this customer.
Great. Great. Super good. Super duper good. Now, is this a relationship that you expect to continue? Is it something that they have an influx of freight now? They got a lot of freight, or is this the type of customer that, they pretty much move a lot of freight all the time?
This is the type of customer where they move a lot of freight all the time. From everything that I've talked to the shipper with, they don't have a slow season.
Okay. Okay. John, can you talk to us a little bit about, man, how did you find this type of customer? Did you just stumble upon this customer? Is it about just going through your process and you just landed a solid customer, or were you looking for something in particular?
I was looking for a refrigerated customer, and I do all of my prospecting through LinkedIn. So I don't know how many other brokerages use that, but I use the LinkedIn Sales Nav. That's a service where they'll send you leads based off of the type of customer that you're trying to get. And each week they'll send me like 75 to 80 leads. And from those leads, I capture their phone number and email address. Once I get that, I put them in a cadence. But with this particular shipper, I literally just sent him a LinkedIn message. He could see my face, I could see his, and he responded and gave me a meeting. And from there, we were able to lock it in.
Okay. Okay. So you're using LinkedIn, and talk me through that part again. What is it called?
The Sales Navigator. So with LinkedIn, they have a service that you can pay extra for, and they will send you leads. So if you're looking for transportation managers, they'll send you a list of like 75 to 150 transportation manager contacts that are listed in LinkedIn. And a lot of these
Okay.
contacts that they send you, you can't see their info from a standard LinkedIn view, if that makes sense.
Okay. So you have to have a paid version in order to be able to see their information.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
But you're getting 75 to 80 leads every week?
Yes, sir. So every Monday I get an email, and it'll have like 75 to 80 potential leads that I can reach out to.
Wow. That's great. That's great,
Yes.
man. Good stuff, man. Because that's one thing that I want to talk about that just for a little bit here is leads, leads, leads. That is the key. That's the sauce, the leads, right? Now, of course, you have to explore the leads, but if you're getting leads in, you have something, you have a place to start. You have people to contact in order to offer your service. Now, yes, you can, do different things in order to gather your leads, but if you have, like what John has here, a service that sends you leads every week, those are leads that you don't have to necessarily search for on your own. Now, of course, you still have to go out and vet those leads, but it's just basically leads that are emailed to you. I like that. It makes me not have to work so hard to find leads. So you might want to take a look at LinkedIn if you are not already doing that. Sales Navigator. Thanks so much for providing that wonderful information there, John.
No problem at all.
Cool. So you're moving some full truck loads, and Dal was talking to me today about some issues that you were having, because we know how it works. When you're moving loads, especially at the volume of loads that you're moving, you're going to start to have issues. So if you can talk us through that, John, I certainly would appreciate it, so we can see what's
Okay.
going on and see if we can give you some help.
No problem at all. So last week I had a load that was a one pick, 4 drops. The carrier
Okay.
got to the pickup facility. Everything was properly like it was supposed to, loaded like it was supposed to. Driver goes to the first drop, everything goes smooth. Gets to the second drop that night, and the receiver refuses the load because they stated that the product was not theirs. So what I had the driver get out of the truck and take a picture of the package that the load that they were saying wasn't theirs, and on that the slip, it did in fact say that it was the product for the next drop. So what I did, which is what I shouldn't have done, I sent the carrier to the next drop. What I should have did was had him wait there until the morning until we got clarification from the customer on how to proceed, because at the end of the day, it did turn out that it was their product, if that makes sense. So when I spoke to the skipper, he said I should have, one, had the carrier stay, and then two, he said that I should have asked them how much would it cost to remove that product to get to their product, if that makes sense. But it didn't turn out that it was. It did turn out that it was their product. But say if it wasn't, he said I should have had them ask them how much would it cost for them to remove the few pallets that wasn't theirs to get to their product.
Right.
Right.
Okay. So let's make sure that I got you correctly here. So you have a load, you have a one pick and what, 4 drops?
4 drops.
And the first 4 drops, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the first drop, everything goes well, no problem. Second drop, you get to that second drop and they refuse to load, saying that these items were not theirs. This particular load is not theirs. You got a wrong PO number, I guess, or whatever it might be. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So you decided, what day was that on? Was that on a weekend, or what was the deal?
It was, I want to say it was on a Wednesday night at 10 p.m.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So when you get to that station, now you got a decision to make, right? You're saying to yourself, okay, should I go ahead and move on to the next station, since they are denying the load? They are saying they are rejecting the load. You made the decision to move on to the next location. And the shipper says that he would have liked you to wait there another day or until the morning came. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Okay. So that load, you went ahead and you took it to the next drop. When you found out that that load was actually theirs, what happened then?
When we got to the next load, they unloaded their product, and the driver went to that last drop. The last drop was only 10 miles away. So he wrapped up that last drop, and then he shot back up to the load where they refused and finished out the route.
Okay. Now, if they're rejecting the load, if they're refusing the load, why should you have waited? Why does he say you should have waited to see if they were going to take it, I guess, in the morning? Why would you do that when they're already rejecting it?
That's a good question. My thought was there's no way they're going to unload this if it's not their product, because at that point, would it not become a liability issue if they were to damage something or mess something up?
Very well could, but I just so what did they look at to deny the load? What did they say was the reason why they were denying the load?
Not the packing slip, but the label that was on that first box. So what we're thinking is maybe if they would have just moved that first box to the side or something, they would have saw that those was their product. But it sounded like the receiver just, when he initially just saw that first box that didn't have their company name on it, he instantly refused it and wouldn't touch it at all.
Okay. So now, did he sign it, the BOL, rejecting those pallets, rejecting 4 pallets or whatever it might have been? Did he do that?
He did not.
Okay. So now the shippers thinks that you should have waited. How did that affect the relationship between you and the shipper?
It didn't. It got a little testy, but he knows that I'm new. I was very upfront with him when I started moving loads, and that's kind of how we kind of built our relationship. So he understood that it was kind of like a rookie mistake from his point of view, is what he called it. But I don't
Okay.
think he definitely didn't hold on to it too long, because he sent me 10 more loads that same day.
Good, good. That's what the next question I was going to ask is, how many loads have you gotten since then? So he's still giving you loads, not without any problems with that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah,
All right,
I
cool.
had to tell him slow it down today, because I'm at capacity for this month.
Right. And
Yeah.
see, and that's a good thing. You see, you have to pump the brakes on him sometime. If you feel like you're getting too much, go ahead and let him know, hey, I think we'll feel to the gills right now. So when we free up some space, we'll let you know. But
Right.
that's a good thing. Definitely don't try and take on more than you can handle and then start dropping the ball, because that will definitely make you look bad.
Right.
I personally don't think that was like a terrible idea, right? If I've gotten, of course, we're on a time schedule. So if I've gotten a rejection, if they've rejected the pallets, and they're telling me that they're not going to drop those pallets, I try and send emails and let them know what's going on. And then depending on the hour, 10 p.m. at night, of course, you're probably not going to be able to get in touch with a shipper. I don't necessarily think that was a bad call, right? Because
Okay.
if I'm being rejected, I just don't see the sense of me hanging around to hope that they're going to not reject it tomorrow, right? So I don't think necessarily that was a bad call, but what matters is your shipper thought that you should have done some difference.
Right.
So at the end of the day, that's what matters. But seems like you recovered well. When you got to that next station, you guys, did you charge him to go back to pick up that to take that load back?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But here's another thing, an issue that I forgot to mention. When they rejected the load, my mind thought process went to, okay, the pickup facility loaded the truck incorrectly, so we have no way of knowing which product is supposed to come off next, until we deliver that
Right.
product that's showing now. So that was a
Right.
whole ordeal where the shipper and we reached out to the pickup facility, and they sent us video of how they scanned the product in, and they did load it correctly. So at the end of the day, this falls back on the customer that rejected that load, that initial load.
Right. Right. Exactly. How is it going for you so far with these types of loads, these one pick, four drop type loads?
They've gone pretty smooth for the most part. Just the hardest part for me, with still being new, is just finding quality carriers. Like I have a
Okay.
few that I can keep running, that I trust. They do a great job communicating and all that good stuff, but there's so much volume, I can't put them on every load. So the toughest challenge for me is getting quality carriers, because I feel like I mastered how to map out these routes pretty quick.
Right.
Because the quicker you can get these things dropped, the more money you can make. When you have to stretch
Absolutely.
things out 3-4 days, it just is not good.
You know it. Okay. Definitely makes sense. That's a really good problem to have. to have the problem of, hey, I got to get capacity to cover my freight. That's a good problem to have. So as long as you have that type of challenge, you have a good challenge, I believe, because that of course leads to making money. When I find trucks, that's what we do as brokers. We get trucks. So that's a great problem to have. You have freight. Let's get the trucks to a capacity to cover the freight. With that said, let's talk about rates. How are you rating the freight, or is it already rated when is it priced already? How does that work?
So with this particular shipper, they send me an Excel sheet with all 200 lanes that they run.
Okay.
They pick up they mainly pick up in 2 cities and they cover 200 lanes. So I send them my rates for all 200 lanes, and then that's how they tender their loads to me. So when if they have a load that picks up in Atlanta that delivers to Minnesota, they look at my rates for that lane, and that's how they tender me my the rates. And for the most part, I do pretty well with their rates. Every now and then I have one where it's tight, but for the most part, when they tender me loads with rates, it's it's pretty good. It's actually a little bit more than what I put on my rate sheet.
Oh, so you don't have any problem moving the loads that are already tendered?
No, no, sir, because they're going off of
Right.
the price that I give them.
Exactly. Okay, cool, cool. So pricing, you're not really having an issue with pricing these lanes, and it seems as if, now let me ask you this. You said that they send you a list of 200 lanes and you
Uh-huh.
provide rates in all of those lanes. Are you comfortable with providing rates in 200 different lanes?
At first I wasn't, but now I am. So pretty much what I did is I have 2 load boards. So I got my prices from the Rate Mate tool from Truck Stop and
Hmm.
the DAT load board. It took quite a time to get all these rates, but I pretty much just looked at both systems and kind of come up with an average for what these lanes are going for, and that worked out pretty good for me so far. That got me pretty
Why,
close.
why, okay. Why do you think that you're doing so well so soon? Did you expect to do as well as you're doing as soon as you did it?
I did not. I definitely thought I would get off to a good start, but I never envisioned it going this fast, this early. And I
Right.
mainly think it's because of the relationship that I built with the shipper. From the first conversation I had with the shipper, we really hit it off. At one point, he was even asking to partner with me on how to get on this side, and he's trying to tell me, "Hey, man, I can get you in this company, this company, this company." So yeah, we it really just started off with hitting it off with the shipper.
Cool, cool. I think that is so important, man, to hit it off, to build that rapport with a shipper. And when you have a shipper eating out your hand in the way that it seems like this shipper is doing, at least wanting to share more of the pie with you, that's a good thing. That's a really, really good thing. And I would certainly be open to exploring those opportunities once you felt comfortable with doing that. But in the meantime, I would be focused on delivering a great service to that shipper, right? So he would be more than comfortable with opening the doors up for you to other people, other companies that he knows. So I think that you're doing a great job as far as that is concerned. Now, there was another issue that you mentioned to Dal. Tell us about that as well.
Sure. So here over the last month or so, the the shipper he tenders out his loads to me a week and a half, 2 weeks out. I go
Okay.
ahead and schedule and get those booked as soon as he sends them to me. I lock them in within the day or so. As of
Okay.
recently, he's been coming to me maybe 3 or 4 days before the pickup, and he's adding a drop to the loads that I already have booked out and a carrier signed to. And it's been creating some
Okay.
issues because they're not adding any additional money to it. Now, some of them, granted, they're on the way along the route. It's additional like 50 to 100 miles or so. In the
Hmm.
beginning, I wasn't going back and asking for more money. And after I spoke with Dow, like that has to happen going forward because literally I spoke with Dow earlier today, and 10 minutes later, it happened again. So yeah, he explained to me that it can happen more often now with the holiday season upcoming, but I've noticed that I'm starting to see that more and more and more as of lately with them adding drops in at the last minute when it's already booked and covered.
We certainly see it more, when holidays seem to come around. It seems like definitely a lot of add-ons happen. But with that said, let's make sure that I'm understanding you correctly here. So you are getting loads tendered about 2 weeks, a week or two prior to the load moving. That's a good amount of time. I like to have that type of time to move loads, right? That gives me a lot of time. I don't have to rush. I can take my time moving that load. And you're saying you're getting those loads covered usually in the first couple of days. So you have everything locked in, and you have about a week's time where you're just waiting to get that load moved. I understood you correctly on that?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Now, with that said, after about maybe 3 to 4 days prior to the load moving, the shipper comes back to you and he says, we need to add a drop to the load.
Correct.
Okay. And there was a time where you were just moving the load. You probably have some good money in that load already. So you were moving the load and you weren't charging for that additional drop. Is that right?
Correct. But there were a couple of times where I've requested more money, but I didn't get a response, and I just get so busy I never followed up. I can still get that money. I just got to sit down with him like, hey, we added this additional stop that added this amount of more time to the driver. We need to add X amount of dollars or so.
Okay. All right. Now, here's the deal. Here's how I see that. I think Dal is absolutely right. If I quote you a load to pick up 1 time and drop 4 times, then that's what I quoted you that load for. 1 pick, 4 drops, nothing outside of that. And we don't want to get or start moving loads for free, moving additional miles, more freight, more weight for free, right? Now, there's 2 things that I would look at in that situation. 2 things that I would do. Number 1, you kind of alluded to it. I would have a quick sit down when things weren't, hair on fire type days, and just let them know, hey, we've had some loads tendered, 1 pick, 4 drops. Then a few days prior, you guys will come back and add additional pallets and maybe an additional drop to the load. We don't have any problem servicing that, but what would you like to do moving forward? Would you like me to send you a new rate confirmation or rate quote so that we can cover the additional pallets, the additional miles? Or would you like for me to charge an accessorial charge on the additional drop, the additional weight, right? Because if you're moving that with a bigger carrier, for example, he's going to come back and charge you, right? So you're having to pay him that accessorial charge for the additional drop, for the additional miles. So you have to charge that to your shipper. So I would either do it as an accessorial charge after the load moved, but the thing about it is he's telling you 3 or 4 days prior. So I shouldn't necessarily have to do an accessorial charge. We should take care of that on the front. But if we don't, we definitely have to charge an extra drop, extra weight fee on the accessorial charge. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that?
I'm writing this down 1 second.
Anybody have any questions on what we've covered so far? I'm trying to make sure that ask these questions so that John can explain what's going on so you can kind of see what he's dealing with and learn from this experience. So if you have any questions, just shoot those questions in and I'll pose those questions to John. When you get some time, sit down and have a conversation with him so that you can get clarification on what is best for him and, of course, what is best for you. You don't have any, just let them know you don't have a problem doing it either way, but you definitely want to get a clarification as to how you guys need to, to proceed moving forward. Because, if these things keep occurring, you want to make sure that you're getting paid for that additional drop.
Right.
Okay. All right. So any other questions that you have for John on what we have covered thus far? Any other questions that you have for him? John, I have one other question here. Factoring. Are you factoring these loads, or how are you paying for your loads?
I pay most out of pocket. In the beginning, I ran out of my factor money the first week. So I went out.
Well,
I went out and so we went through the whole back and forth with getting their credit line increased each week. But you know, once a customer meets their credit threshold in the factor company, they won't increase it until they start seeing some form of payment history.
right.
So I had to go out and secure some additional funding. I secured that, and ever since then, I really don't have to factor now, but I still do from time to time. But for the most part, I don't use the factor company. They just report my payments, and um, I submit the paperwork to the portal once everything's paid and all that good stuff.
Okay. Now, I want to make sure that you guys heard what he said. He said that he ran out of factoring money with, excuse me, within the first week. What he's saying there is that when a factoring company first starts working with a new customer, if they don't have a history on that customer, or if they have not a sufficient history, they'll give you a limit. They'll give you a credit limit as to how much money you can move with this particular shipper. And once, let's just say it was 10,000. Once you reach 10,000, then they're not going to do any more moves until payments start to come in, right? So it's like you get a credit limit up to a certain point, and when you get to that limit, they're not going to move any more loads with you. Now, think of what kind of problem that causes for John in this situation. If you have a shipper that's willing to give you loads on top of loads, but the credit is not sufficient for them to, give them an extended credit line or unlimited line, then you're going to have some issues there. So look at what he did. He says that, hey, once they, I knew they weren't going to extend that line just yet, I went out and got funding. I went out and got my own funding so that I could continue to move loads with this shipper. Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the problems that poses, right? Because there's risk in everything that we do, but we have to assess that risk. You have to take a look at it and see, okay, can I withstand this? Now, the factoring company gave that shipper a certain line of credit, right? So they were comfortable enough to extend him or her some credit, that particular company, right? Now, so if I go out and get a loan or I get funding, a credit line, now what's at stake is, what if the shipper doesn't pay? Then I don't get paid. I'm going to lose out on the loads that I've been moving with that shipper, or the money that I've been moving with that shipper. So is that a risk? Certainly it is. But sometimes you'll look at that and you'll say, hey, I feel good about this particular situation. I've been moving loads with this shipper already. I'm getting paid. So I'm okay with taking on this risk. When you're getting loads and you're moving loads and you're having shippers pay you, I would feel pretty good about that. Don't get me wrong. I would, definitely would be on my mind. What if they didn't pay? But I would be pretty comfortable with that type of risk. Is that basically how you assess that situation, John? Or talk to us about how you went and made that decision, considering those factors.
Okay, so I'm gonna let my wife step in because she was a big part of securing this funding. I don't, but
Okay.
quite.
Hi, Brandon, everybody. So, can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Okay?
How are you tonight?
Oh, doing well. John is a busy man over here, just trying to help out where I can. Uh, so I think that was probably one of the things that excited me because like I watched this guy just work super hard at building this thing out, and I was like, he came and this is how much he was working. He didn't realize that he ran out of credit, and I was like, he has people to pay like carriers. I was like, John, like, how are you gonna pay them? He was like, I have no clue. So we're here, but we find a way. That's how he operates. So essentially, him and I have like a pretty close family friend, and we didn't go the traditional bank route. This is a person that has kind of always said if we ever need anything, that kind of thing. And I think what really worked out is that we were able to show him essentially our business plan. We gave a full open view into like how many loads we were actually moving, the fact that they were on a particular payment time frame in terms of their turnaround, and it worked out that I think the next week they were essentially going to start paying, but we were just kind of on that tight timeline. So essentially, we got maybe a much better deal than the bank. He actually is acting as like a factoring company for us, so essentially the same rate as a factoring company without having I guess some of the risk that you would have without the interest rate and all that kind of stuff you have with the bank. So it worked out pretty well. I would say if you do have those sorts of resources and you have to do that, once you, like you said, that you have a customer that's gonna pay and you're in a tight situation, that it may be better than like looking up a traditional funding route, going that route with someone that maybe can leverage you a little bit better without having to take the deeper risk.
Good, good. That makes sense. That makes sense. So now, is this a person that you've known for a long time, or are you just how long have you known this person?
I've known him for about 8 years. We worked together on about 3 different jobs together, and he knew that my husband was starting this business, and just kind of kept him informed and stuff. And he's just a big supporter of us, and he ended up being in a situation himself that worked out for him a couple of years ago, and just freed up a lot of things for him to be able to help us out when we need it, kind of thing.
Okay.
And he's actually,
so now, are you
trying to be an investor. He actually wants me to quit. So the job that he actually got me hired at, where like it's our 3rd time working together, he quit back in June. And I took over his position. And so now he's actually went off and doing his own thing. And he's trying to like get me to quit my job now to work full time with John. And the way he's doing that is by wanting to invest in the company. So I think he offered, we're thinking about it. He offered me about $200,000. Essentially, that was his investment, his way of investing, so to speak, is giving me $200,000 to like go full time with John, and that would be his way in, essentially. So we're still considering the offer. We don't know if we want to do that just yet. Just thinking about what makes sense for us and what we want this to mean in terms of our business being in the family or opening it up to something like that.
That's what's up. Okay, I can dig it. I can dig it. What type of terms are you on with your customers? Net 30, net 45? How are you doing that?
Net 21 is the terms for this customer. But like it says net 21, but realistically, I get those payments anywhere from that 25 to 35 day range.
Okay, cool. All right. So, John and your wife, what's your wife's name, John?
Is Uquay.
Uquay. John and Uquay. Man, you have really blessed us with a wonderful experience tonight to tell us what's going on in your business, how you're doing things, and I certainly appreciate that. I'm sure all of the members of the class appreciate you being so open, transparent with what it is that you're doing, and sharing your experience with us. Before we let you go, John and Uquay, is there anything that you can share with us that you would say that stands out with your experience that you think would help someone else that's just getting started? Is there anything that you would kind of share with the group that you think would be a good for young freight brokers moving forward?
My advice, or biggest advice that I can give, is just consistency. You gotta get up and do it every day, no matter how good or bad you feel. It's not easy. It's definitely not an easy task at all. But if you stay the course and is consistent and hit that nail every day, you'll eventually get to where you want to be.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. John Uquay, I certainly appreciate it again. Thank you so much for coming on tonight and sharing that with us. I hope you were able to get something from the information that we shared.
Absolutely, absolutely, no problem. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Uquay. So that's John and Uquay. John, what is the name of your business? Tell me, give me shoot a message and tell me what the name of your business is. That's John and Uquay. Really interesting the way that they're doing business. I think it's about figuring it out what works for you, and not allowing for Garrett Logistics LLC, not allowing for little trials, little hills, little mountains that come up, not allowing for that to stop you. I think John and Uquay could have easily said, oh, okay, well, the credit line is up. We can't move any more loads with this shipper. They could have easily stopped right there, right? But I don't think that they would have, come into the trust that this shipper has in them now, right? As you move more and more loads, the shipper trusts you more and more because you're continuing to show your value. You're continuing to show that you can answer the bell and do what you say, deliver loads on time. I want to let you know, guys and ladies, know something tonight. That is the bulk of what we do, delivering on your word, just doing what you say you can do. I asked John, hey, John, are you uncomfortable at all providing, rates on 200 lanes? He said, yeah, at first, it was a little bit uncomfortable, but as I continued to do it, I got more comfortable with it. And that's what it's about, ladies and gents. It's about, as he said, consistency, continuing to take steps forward, even when you feel uncomfortable taking those steps. Because at the end of the day, your success lies on the other side of your discomfort, right? You have to go through that discomfort. You have to go through being uncomfortable to get you to where it is that you want to go. I'm sure he's had many of conversations that he was uncomfortable with. I'm sure he's talked about different things that he didn't really understand. But continuing to go through it, making a way, just keep moving forward, and you get more and more comfortable with it as you go. It's not something that happens usually overnight. I think that John and his wife is the exception. When you're talking about moving $100,000 of revenue per month consistently, that usually doesn't happen in the first few months of your business, and they're already doing that. So I want to take my hat off to them. Thank them again so much for coming to the training tonight. We had, I think most of us had got immense value from what you shared tonight. Thank you so much again, and I wish you the very best as you continue to move forward in your business.